Welcome back to the tutorial series on gravity data processing using the DGS MATLAB applications designed to process data acquired using the DGS 81A meters. So in the previous videos, we saw how we can edit a configuration file and process survey data. For this video, we will see how we can plot the flight data and assess all the processed parameters. So to do this, we will use the plot flight menu. This menu offers us options to visualize the various parameters and variables that have resulted from the processing. So we have three options. We can either plot a whole flight, or plot different lines, or plot the status of the flight. So we'll start with the plot flight button. So click on that. This opens a dedicated window where we can plot different variables that are offered here in this list, and we can see it across the whole flight. So you can select the horizontal axis reference from three options. You can either have it in time, it would be survey seconds. You can either have it in longitude, or you can plot it on latitude. So in this case, I will use time, survey seconds. From there, if you've just processed a flight, that will be the file that is already open. However, you can always access any other processed file by clicking on the Get File button to select any other processed data file. Of course, the expected file format is a .mat file, which you saw was the output file from processing the data. So here in this section, you see the active file, the current file that is in display. Here we have a list of variables in the processed file. So from the free air, the EGMO8 along the survey lines, the cross and long accelerations. It's a list of various variables that result from the processing. So you can select any variable to plot. So if I would like to compare the free air, gravity, and the EGMO8 model, I could select that, which will plot both for me. So we can zoom in if we would like to see maybe more smaller variations. Okay, if you'd like to see the latitude correction, so you could note that for every variable that I click, the plot changes. So if you would like to compare, sometimes you'll notice that maybe a variable like maybe velocity or number of satellites, it will all depend on the GPS file version that you have and if it had this information. Okay, so if you would like to compare different flights, a really good tip is that you can open multiple plot flight windows. So I'll just go back to showing free air, and maybe I would like to compare this data with another flight data. So I can open another window. So now I have two plot flight windows. So I can get a different file here, so maybe a different days file. And you can use this to simultaneously compare multiple flight data. So it's that simple. We will now look at the plot line option. So I will close this too. So from the plot flight menu, we can now look at plot lines. So here we are able to see flight data, or rather survey data from the perspective of each survey line. So just like the previous plot window, we have list of variables here and the selection for the horizontal axis reference here. Again, it's the same. You can either choose between time, longitude, or latitude. So I will maintain time. You can load a different file and you can note the active file right here. So if I would like to see all lines, specifically if it's just one line that I would like to see, so I'll only select that line, which would be line 1. And I can see the free air plot. Maybe we can compare it with the EGM8. So it's a really good fit for this data. And if I would like to compare it simultaneously with another line, or if I would like to see line 2 in its own plot window, again you can also open another plot lines window. So you can open multiple plot line windows. So now I have two plot line windows. So I would like to look into the same flight but 2 lines with the satellite data. So this case, we can see that if we plotted it maybe on latitude so that or longitude so that we could see it in the same direction, you can see that these 2 adjacent lines have similar signals. So this is a way for you to assess your gravity data between adjacent lines simultaneously. Okay, so the last plot button, which is the plot status. So we'll close these first. Plot status. So you would have to get the process file whose status you'd like to assess. So we'll get our last processed file, which is flight 1A. And it will display a graphical representation of the sensor status for that selected processed file. So here you can assess various parameters or the various status of the sensor while acquiring its data. So it's clamp status, unclamp, GPS synchronization, its feedback, ad lock, all these checks that maybe you would be interested to know if anything went wrong with the equipment during the flight. So each status is represented by a binary value, which means either 0 or 1. So for example, a value of 1 for the meter clamp status would indicate that the meter was clamped, while 0 would signify that it's not. So it gives you a bit of an overview of the performance of the sensor throughout the recording. You can also plot multiple meter status files simultaneously. So you can open another plot status and open a different file if you'd like to compare 2 processed files, maybe from a different day. So that covers the plotting tools so that you're able to visualize your data. In the next video, I will show you how to use the name lines tool to rename the survey lines in your data file.